Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. NC State heading on the road to play Miami in this matchup. Man, it's the definition of good on good. You look at this NC State offense and say, I don't know if there's a more dynamic and explosive offense that you see in this conference. Like, this is an NC State team that's coming off a win against Georgia Tech, coming out of a bye week, going on the road, and playing a Miami Hurricanes defense that, look, it's the best defense that we see in this conference. I would go as far to say it's one of the better defenses that we see in the entire country. As frustrating as the 2025 season has been for a lot of Miami fans, y'all got a guy in Corey Heatherman because he's completely revolutionized how this program plays defense. Another fun storyline of CJ Bailey, man. Now, we've been doing this long enough, and many Miami fans have been rocking with the boys long enough to remember CJ Bailey coming out of high school. And a lot of y'all that are listening to this right now were banging the table for Miami to go after CJ Bailey when he was coming out of high school. It's like, hey, yeah, everybody was talking about JoJo Trader and Jeremiah Smith. Hey, who was throwing them the football during their senior year? It was CJ Bailey. He's coming back home to South Florida, going up against an elite defense. A lot of really fun matchups to get into. But at the same side of things, legitimate college football playoff implications. Look, Miami won the weekend over the weekend. What I mean by that is not only did Miami take care of business against Syracuse, you saw Virginia lose, you saw Louisville lose at home to Cal. The door is open for Miami to get back into the college football playoffs, but I think one thing's really important. Style points. Why is Notre Dame so much higher than Miami in the college football playoff rankings? Now, one, it's something I significantly disagree with, but why are they ranked that high? I think it's a little bit of the eyeball test. I mean, even though Notre Dame lost to Miami head to head, Notre Dame has looked like the better team over the last couple of weeks as opposed to Miami kind of wavering. The committee cares about how these games look. That's what they've told us. Whether we agree with it, whether we don't, they care about how these games look. And if you're Miami, it's not enough just to win 3 straight games here. Got to go out and dominate. And quite frankly, that's should be the expectation for a lot of Miami fans. This team is capable of beating anybody in the country, but they have to find that gear again. We saw that gear from them in September. We haven't really seen it over the last couple of weeks. You want to see that kind of team, the team that we saw in September, emerge in November. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, I apologize for the long intro. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it rip in the comments section. The amount of support for these preview and prediction episodes been amazing. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, into this one. Now let's start with this NC State offense. That what I love most about NC State is their ability to be explosive, both running the football and throwing the football. Now they got 2 really good running backs. Hollywood Smothers, we're not sure if he's going to be able to go. They still got a guy in Jaden Scott who ran for well over 100 yards against Georgia Tech before the bye week. Really dynamic rushing attack with a passing attack that not only has CJ Bailey been really, really good at the quarterback position, they got a laundry list of difference makers that are big, strong, and fast. What really makes this NC State offense difficult to deal with is how balanced they are and how explosive they are. And if you're Corey Heatherman, that is priority number one. Is they got a lot of difference makers that can change games. How can we limit the explosive plays that they manufacture? Because if there's one knock that you have with this NC State offense, it's that it's probably little reliant on hitting those 20-plus yard plays. If you're Miami, go make them execute. If they're going to score on you, go make them execute 14 straight plays. And if you can limit the explosives, you give yourself a good shot at slowing down what I think is a really, really good NC State offense. Now, another storyline here is pressure on the quarterback, right? When CJ Bailey is clean, 14 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. When he's under pressure, 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. When CJ Bailey makes those young quarterback mistakes, it normally has to do with the pocket not being clean. If you're Miami, I mean, Miami's been the king of disrupting quarterbacks so far in 2025. I don't think there's a better edge rushing duo in the country than Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. I think NC State's right tackle, and I think NC State's offensive line in general is pretty damn solid. The right tackle, number 54, probably the weak link. And so whether that's Akeem Mesidor, whether that's Ruben Bain lining up on him, that's the matchup that you are looking for. But at the same time, you want to impact CJ Bailey, but you want to limit the amount of times he can get himself out of the pocket and go beat you playing backyard football. What's Miami's plan for the mobility that CJ Bailey has? That's another storyline here too. Limit the explosive plays, heat up CJ Bailey. If you can do those two things, of which Miami's done a really good job of. I mean, they don't give up a lot of explosive plays. They got one of the best pass rushes in the country. You feel like you can do a decent job stopping this NC State offense. Flipping the sides here. For Miami, it is all about execution. And I mean this with all due respect. We are used to seeing a lot of really good defenses from NC State. This year ain't that year. I don't think NC State has the personnel to give Miami a ton of problems. This is a Miami Hurricanes football game. What I mean by that is you got to go out and execute. That means catching footballs. That means not taking pre-snap penalties. That's been the problem for Miami at times. The execution side of things. You look at NC State's defense to say they're giving up 33 points per game. That's 119th in the country. 6.4 yards per play. That's 126 in the country. They're not particularly good stopping the run. They're really bad stopping the pass. Haynes King, who I think's a good thrower of the football. I don't think he's great. Haynes King went on the road to NC State and threw for 400 yards. The biggest question marks I have for this Miami offense is, can we get back to the ceiling, the best version of this Miami offense? And there's one thing that Shannon Dawson said in the press conference actually this afternoon that stuck with me. And that was he got some heat for calling that trick play to CC Maui Noah in a little bit of a meaningless spot. You know, Miami was pulling away in that game. And a lot of Miami fans were like, well, why are we calling that play in that moment? Shouldn't we save it for a moment that we really needed it? Shannon Dawson's response was, or one of the reasons he called that play was, hey, we think we need to start having a little bit more fun, being a little bit more creative. And I think that has to do with Shannon Dawson, but I think that has to do with this whole offense as well. It felt like in the second half, Miami was having fun on offense and Shannon Dawson was having fun calling the offense. I hope to see that translate this weekend against NC State. Gerard Pringle, does he get a bigger role in this Miami Hurricanes offense? And if he does get that bigger role, can he provide the explosiveness in this rushing attack that Miami has desperately needed? The big bugaboo for Miami, the reason why the rushing numbers look the way they do, you only have 12 plays, 12 rushes that have gone for over 15 plus yards. It's been a stale rushing attack. It's been an efficient rushing attack, but it hasn't been a very explosive rushing attack. Can Gerard Pringle give that to Miami? Because you start having the conversation of, if you're a Miami fan, it's one thing to get into the playoffs. We want to do damage when we get there. I don't think Miami can do damage unless they become a little bit more explosive on offense, specifically running the football. The second part is I think Shannon Dawson needs to trust Carson Beck a little bit more. And I get Carson Beck has, what's the best way to put it, struggled throughout the month of October. Back to the conversation of, hey, what's it look like if Miami becomes a threat in the playoffs? Not just makes the playoffs, becomes a threat in the playoffs. You have to let Carson Beck rip it, man. I mean, his average depth of target in that game against Syracuse was 4 yards. A lot of screens, a lot of quick game, which Carson Beck excels at. Don't get me wrong. How do you facilitate more explosive rushing attack? Well, throw these teams out of that box. There are a lot of Miami teams that are loading the box, or a lot of defenses that are loading the box on Miami, which makes it hard to run the football. Throw them out of that, challenge them vertically down the field. And I know Carson Beck has struggled at times vertically down the field. That's where a lot of his turnovers have come. I still think you got to try. There's a reason you went out and paid $3.5 million for him. You have to treat him like a $3.5 million quarterback. You can't treat him like a true freshman. Execution, run game, a little bit more explosiveness from this Miami Hurricanes offense. And again, I'll repeat it. I just don't think, from a personnel standpoint, that NC State scares you. I just don't. They don't have that many NFL dudes on defense. This comes down to Miami executing their offense, and if they do that, they should be able to score. They should be able to outscore NC State. Look, NC State's probably going to put up some points. This is outside of Notre Dame, maybe the best offense Miami has seen. NC State will score, but I think if Miami goes out and executes, they'll score more. I don't love taking 14.5 points here because I got a lot of respect for NC State, but I think Miami does win this game. I'm not sure if they cover. We'll close it out there. Gonna be a fun one, especially NC State's offense against this Miami defense. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.